Welcome to True Health Tuesday, and the truth will set you free. And lies will enslave you. Welcome to the socialized republic of the, what would you call it? What, Emperor Newsom? Okay, yeah. So we're going to talk about reversing arthritis. Now, this is kind of cool because that's a before and after x-ray. And you can also see a leaky gut on the one on the left and a better one on the right. That big old black area is an abnormal bowel gas. But let's look at this. Now looking into history, because are you guys aware of what's going to happen in 2 weeks? The restrictions that are going to be more imposed and the ones, no, neither am I. Nobody does. This is like a roulette wheel. Okay, I was hoping someone was going to say, yeah, dude, I know. Okay, so I'm looking back. Now think of this. 1941. I mean, now 2020, if I said socialist government, you would say America. Yes, you're right. Okay, we don't, the Bill of Privileges. I'm sorry, it is the Bill of Rights. No, rights can't be taken away, but privileges can. So we no longer have freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, so it makes sense. But let's go back to another time when the other socialist group was trying to take over, the Nazis. And so now we have socialism in ours, restricting breathing, restricting social groups, restricting everything for something that's about as dangerous as the flu. And people are going to say, no, it's not. Well, we're going to go into some stats and then you can decide. But this was a speech presented before Congress by Franklin Delano Roosevelt in January, not December, when we were attacked by Japan and got into the war on both sides. And so imagine that Europe was on the verge of a war. Just 20 years earlier, okay, it had just finished World War I, the war to end all wars. And so this was a powerful time when you could see socialism kind of take over. The Four Freedoms. And this is Franklin Delano Roosevelt, 1941, January 6th. In the future days, we seek to make secure. We look forward to a world founded upon four essential human freedoms. First is the freedom of speech and expression everywhere in the world. Second is the freedom of every person to worship God in his own way everywhere in the world. Third is the freedom from want, which translated into world terms means economic understanding, which will secure to every nation a healthy peacetime life for its inhabitants everywhere in the world. Beautiful world, man. The fourth is freedom from fear, which translated in world terms means a worldwide reduction of armaments to such a point and throughout such a thorough fashion that no nation will be in a position to commit an act of physical aggression against any neighbor anywhere in the world. . That's cool. It's kind of like what we used to call the Bill of Rights. It's a great idea. Certain unalienable rights that can never be taken away from you because you being a human have a right to be on this planet. I mean, it's brilliant. So the media is perpetuating massive fear. And this is one of the emotional stressors that can actually lead to a weakened immune system. They had a really cool article in USA Today that if anybody decides they don't want to wear a mask, you're trying to kill a senior. If you're not doing social distancing, you don't care about others. Okay, this little bit of freedom you're going to give up, okay, to harm other people. I mean, it was just insane. So let's look at it. Now, they said that Sweden has a greater death toll than United States. And that's because in Sweden, and when this article was written just a couple of weeks ago, 556 per million inhabitants versus the United States of 330 million has 425 per million. And you could manipulate the numbers if you had no ethics or morals like USA Today. But, let's look at that. Now, Sweden does have around 556 million deaths per. But now, are those deaths accurately written? Are they accurately recorded? And you could say, well, did somebody have COVID and get hit by a motorcycle like in Florida and die of COVID? Are they dying from this disease? If they are, Dr. Tim O'Shea has a $5,000 reward for anyone that can show anybody that died of COVID. He's in Northern California. That would be cool. You get $5,000 there if you can prove it. But are they dying with it? That they have diabetes, type 2, type 1, past chemotherapy. I mean, there's something else. So let's look at the death rates 5 per million, and let's separate New York and New Jersey away from America, because New York and New Jersey is interesting. Now, it's mind-boggling that someone can destroy so many lives, wipe out an entire economy, take down one of the biggest cities in the world, a city that I've always wanted to visit until now. New York has a death rate of 1,669 per million, more than three times what Sweden deaths is. USA didn't mention that. And it's unique that a virus that goes worldwide would isolate out in New York and New Jersey, because New Jersey has a death rate of around 1,700 per million, okay, which is way greater than the UK, 662 per million, Spain, 608, Belgium, 884. And so you look at this and you think, well, gee, why is this attacking New Yorkers? Why is it? Could it be the response? Maybe the number, maybe they're Heather County. It's just weird that a virus would go up to the state line and say, holy moly, I can't get through here. I should just go back to New Jersey and infect people. And then when you look at it, 46%, that's almost half of all the deaths in all of America, and this is including Texas, Oklahoma, Ohio, California, I mean, all the Alaska, Hawaii, all of America, 46% of the deaths are from New York and New Jersey. That's unusual. That's unusual, but no investigation. 50% of all deaths in the entire United States are in nursing homes, and 97% of the deaths are over 65. So the experiment of locking in house arrest and shutting down all the businesses to stop this doesn't seem to be really working. Plus, suicides are on the rise like crazy. Alcohol deaths increased 67%, meth use increased 300%, child abuse, unemployment, everything through the roof. Now, by September, there will be 28 million more evictions in America. There's like 300 million people, 330 million in America. So we're looking at about 5 to 8% of our entire population being homeless from the lockdowns. So what we need to stop doing is stop being afraid of a virus. And this is what I tell people. Why are you wearing the mask? Oh, are you sick? No, you're not sick. Are you afraid you're going to get sick? Well, so you got to open up a conversation. We need to strengthen our immune system, because we had a patient in here who was really freaked out. She was in her 30s. Well, my mother is 62. And I go, cool, I'll be 61. What's the difference? Okay, well, she might be ill or sick. And so I gave her a bottle of vitamin C and bottle of D3. And I said, instead of being afraid of a virus that has a 99.9% recovery rate, that's right, 99.9%. You talk to a standard 20-something and say, if you caught COVID, what are you going to die? Oh, that's it. You're going to die. It's like death coming in with its sickle. No, you have a 99.9% chance of not dying with this. It's a very, very self-limiting disease. Now, we need to strengthen our economy. That means you got to get back to work. When you look at kids, and I really encourage you to look at some of the data other than CNN, because when your friends, like if you're talking to your friends and the friends say, oh, I listen to CNN, I listen to, CDC and the Johns Hopkins. Okay, they're not actually looking at the CDC. They're looking at CNN, who quotes these people who are there to perpetuate the fear. We need to take back on our inalienable rights like life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. I mean, we have to get back to this. So now, that's the little snippet of what's going on so far. If I said this a year ago, you would say this is impossible. This is like a bad Twilight Zone episode. So we will get out of this. We will get out of this. People will survive. And I'm not talking the COVID, because COVID's going to be next year, just like flu, just like measles and chickenpox and influenza. It's going to be cyclical around. And yes, it's not novel. All viruses change and mutate and adapt. And in fact, I was to sneeze on Dr. Stewart, that virus, he would have to be weakened, but it would have to use his RNA or DNA, depending on the virus, to replicate. And don't worry, there's multiple people who have investments in the pharmaceutical industry that say we can get back to normal when we have the vaccine. Just know that there's no liability on the vaccine. Okay. So how did I get into arthritis reversal? Well, I did it before I was a chiropractor. And in fact, okay, so here I am, 22 years old. I'm doing a woodwork pattern on top of a second floor. The ladder kicks out, hits the sidewalk, and I bounce my knee off of the sidewalk, shattering my kneecap. So that hurt. And no, really, it did. I'm not wimpy. But the kneecap itself healed kind of funky. It was in 4 pieces. And so they went in there after about 6 months and they operated it, they ground it down. It was a miracle. I went from walking like an old 22-year-old to, running, dancing, playing paintball again. Now, when I was 30 years old, I was walking across the street, and yeah, my oldest son said, "Dad, didn't you look both ways?" How many parents in here hate it when their kids are right? Thank God it's all universal, just about. Okay, so I'm hit by a car, break both my legs, fracture my sternum, fracture my skull, knock my front teeth out, bruise my heart, bruise my liver. And so, thank God the MD has kept me alive, but, I was really hurting. And so I was just trusting him. And they were doing an operation on one knee and then the other one, and it felt unstable, and it didn't really feel better. And then I got another operation. This is going to be my 4th one. And it still felt unstable. And just common sense, I'm thinking, they're taking stuff out. No wonder it feels unstable. And so I was working with a chiropractor, and he says, "No, man, your body's designed to heal. You can regenerate." And so as I was so fascinated with how the body worked, I went back to school to become a chiropractor. And turned out I had a knack for anatomy and taught that. So it's interesting because people have certain theories. Like let's look at arthritis. Arth means joint. Itis means inflammation. So if I say arthritis, what did I just say? Joint inflammation. Now, osteoarthritis, the most popular type of this, is a non-inflammatory arthritis. Okay, so now this was done, they made a mistake. And you're going to see a lot of medicine makes mistakes, not just now in the COVID stuff. Okay, I'm talking mistake for years. So they saw it, they saw that it was damaged, okay, and they thought it was inflammation. But they realized that it wasn't, that it was the end result of a trauma. So now the most common type of joint inflammation is a non-inflammatory joint inflammation. Dude, okay, okay, so no one's going to correct it. Now, the key with this is it's not symmetrical, and it's not an autoimmune condition. It's the end result of a trauma. Now, the rheumatoid arthritis, we're going to get into this just a little bit because it's getting very, very popular. And I got to tell you, all you need is joint pain and a positive RA factor, okay, on a blood test. And then, bam, you're labeled with this autoimmune condition that will destroy your life. And then you're put on completely toxic drug just to suppress the symptom, which causes more of the problem. It's crazy because the last, I think about 5-6 people that came in with a rheumatoid arthritis diagnosis, they said, "Yeah, my finger is really sore." And I'm looking at it, there's no joint deformation or anything. And I'll just say, "How long have you had this diagnosis?" "Oh, 5 years. Okay, it's supposed to be symmetrical rheumatoid arthritis. Symmetrical, so it's got to be on the same side. It's got to be an autoimmune condition. And this covers a lot of them. And that's one of the ways that you diagnose it. Is it asymmetrical or on one side, or is it symmetrical? But doctors are really not critical thinkers. That's obvious just by watching CNN and the crap they're doing to our country and economy. These are not a smart group of people. Now, I'm not just talking about Fauci as a complete friggin' idiot, okay? You know, we're just wiping out all of the people. So rheumatoid arthritis, scleroderma, lupus, psoriatic arthritis, polymyositis, and you're going to find out the body's immune system doesn't just go crazy and attack itself. There's certain stimuli that do it. But first, let's look at the health of the blood. Now, this is fun because I did a live blood cell analysis on a family, mom, son, grandson. Okay, and so we have a 64-year-old, a 44-year-old, and an 18-year-old. Now, just think of this. Okay, what we've got, and this is every joint in the body. Okay, we're not talking about osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis or anything. They're two bones coming together, surrounded by a capsule. And inside of that capsule is called a synovial membrane. And then inside of that is synovial fluid, a superfiltrated blood. So the joint is hydraulic. It's hydraulic. You got to have that fluid in there in order to have that cushion. Now, if the fluid gets compressed out, because look at the three different types of blood up there. You got one on the left, a grandma, who's just about the healthiest one of the group. You got blood in the middle showing a massive chronic stressor and inflammation. And then you got the 18-year-old also looking at membrane integrity, and the blood vessels are starting to clump together. So grandma's the only one that's going to have good, healthy joints. Does that make sense? Because that blood can't filter in through there. This is also why diabetes, type 1, type 2, they have thicker blood, so they have the joint problems because it can't get in there and filter it. Does that make sense? Then when you look at other things, like I put a knee joint up here. The knee joint isn't in an isolated environment. You got a quadricep on one side, hamstrings on the other. You got this gastrocnemius and soleus muscle in the lower leg, which is actually a pump. So you are never going to see a knee dysfunction unless you got something else going around. I mean, obviously, if you're laying in bed, you get somebody that doesn't like you, comes in and beats your knee with a hammer, that would be an individual injury. Okay, that doesn't happen that often. But if you have some kind of trauma where your gait is off, that pump in the back of the leg isn't going to be working correctly, so that knee can desiccate or dry up. And typically what you'll see in people with long-term knee problems, you're going to see foot distortions. Like the big toe is going to start to lean towards the other one, which means that since your gait is off, that destabilizes the pelvis. So when we're looking at arthritis and arthritis reversal, you got to look at the whole body, because it's foolish to just think, oh, it runs in your family. No, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. You don't pass on stuff that doesn't help the species. I mean, how many people are going to pass on the estimations of the death toll from a novel virus, okay, that the experts got completely wrong? No one's going to pass that stuff on. Okay, so let's look at rheumatoid arthritis. Okay, just autoimmune for the start. Now, we have a whole hour on this, so we're just going to touch on some minor points. Most chronic common disease in the world. In the world. Now, if I said this was the most common chronic disease in the world of every caribou, would you be thinking that the caribou are defective or that there's some environmental stimulus? Okay, good. Just checking. Common sense in this group is good. Okay, so now and this is what's weird, because the CDC says we don't know what's actually causing it, but your body seems to be attacking itself. Right. Mayo Clinic, we don't know. Could be the genes, but it can't be the genes because it's being expressed in different areas. So what do we really know? There's certain causes of this, things that weaken your immune system response that cause the immune system to develop antibodies to foreign proteins. Vaccination, it's a process of injecting foreign animal proteins, adjuvants, and things to stimulate the immune system. Now, we do 72 doses of 17 different vaccines in our children by the time they're 18 in America. Most states are losing their exemptions, so this means parental rights are taken away as well. Don't worry about the vaccine. I know you're worried about the vaccine companies because you're thinking, by God, doing 72 doses of 17 different vaccines in an 18-year-old, knowing that those can cause secondary problems, Wouldn't that make for a sick population? It does. It does. We got 54% of our kids with a chronic injury or illness that will never recover. We have 60% of our adults that have a chronic injury or illness that will never recover. So I know your concern is for the pharmaceutical industry. Don't worry, there's no liability. Okay, so I encourage you to look at it's called The Act. It's an Andrew Wakefield movie. And so if you're not aware that this was passed in 1986 to take away your actual rights of going after a company that may have hurt you or your family, I encourage you to look at that. Antibiotics. Antibiotics are in everything now. They're in our water system. You find antibiotics in breast milk. Okay, this is glyphosates. Glyphosates is in breast milk, Americans' urine, the water, the bread, everything. And that is a mineral chelator and an antibiotic. Medications, multiple medications damage your gut flora and your immune system. Environmental toxins, processed foods, sedentary lifestyle. I mean, literally physical, chemical, emotional stress. Health of our population, it's really sick. Okay. Why? Because our interventions, okay, they're based on a symptom drug protocol. Now, this is what they're doing in New York and New Jersey. They're not allowed to use vitamin C or vitamin D3. They are allowed to use remdesivir and what is it? The breathing machines, the ventilators that have a 90% kill rate. But this is a very sick population. Now, our kids, 54% have a chronic injury or illness, so we have to clean up the environment. So let's look at this. Well, Hepatitis B vaccine. Now, knowing that there's no liability, okay, and I don't want to just pick on the Hepatitis B vaccine because that would be unfair. How long do you think we should test this vaccine before injecting it in human beings? You know, knowing that they could have a myriad of effects. Do you think a year, a month, 50 years? 10 years. Okay, it was studied for 4 days. Okay, 4 days in healthy adults. Now it's prescribed to children at 12 hours old. Now, a large series of autoimmune conditions have been reported, and you'll see there's reference numbers to everything I'm putting on here. So for all of the trolls and the fact checkers, look at all the references on the back. I know it doesn't really matter to you because you're just going to X me out anyway. But, you know, at least this way you can do it knowing that you're actually criminals. Okay, so Hepatitis B vaccine. This is on the insert. It can cause multiple sclerosis, optic neuritis, vasculitis, arthritis. Interesting, because it triggers an inflammatory process. Lupus, thrombocytopenia, and rheumatoid arthritis. And that's out of the Journal of Autoimmunity. This is an interesting one. European Association of Predictive, Preventive, and Personalized Medicine. Vaccines and autoimmune. What they're saying is that vaccination might display autoimmune side effects and potentially even full-blown autoimmune disease. The susceptibility to vaccine-induced autoimmunity is probably determined by genetic predisposition, which further emphasizes the importance of mosaic autoimmunity. What they're saying is each person should be looked at as an individual. I know you're going, whoa, dude, I had no idea. I thought one size fits all, and you'd be wrong. So it turns out that we can't give the same drug to everybody, the same dose, okay, that there's individual responses. Like influenza vaccine and Guillain-Barré, which is permanent paralysis, or influenza vaccine and diabetes, because these are all, the body gets this foreign protein and develops antibodies that negatively affects the pancreas. Here's hepatitis B vaccine and multiple sclerosis. And again, a number of real multiple sclerosis cases linked to HPV was 2.25 times higher than officially registered. HPV vaccine and systemic lupus. Okay, I like this. Latency period of several days to 2 years between immunization and onset of SLE. So 10 years might be a little bit, or 50 years might be a little long. 10 years might be a little bit short. MMR vaccine and a blood disorder, idiopathic thrombocytopenia. MMR vaccine and rheumatoid arthritis. Interesting, because it says it on the label. Now, don't worry because you all heard multiple politicians saying we can all go back to normal when we get the COVID vaccine. Okay, now the COVID vaccine, they said, look, it's not just one. Now it's going to be 2 doses. We're not quite sure how it's going to work, but don't worry, they have no liability as well. Okay, now the medications used to treat this insanity. Okay, because you can see no one's going after the cause. No one's going after strengthening the immune system. No one's going to go, hey, look, what's your gut like? What's your health like? How many bowel movements a day do you have? What other physical, chemical, and emotional stressors do you have? Why did you develop this? None of those questions are asked. These doctors need to be re-educated. Okay, that was politically correct, okay? Dude, boy, that was close. Okay. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, first drug. Okay, you have joint pain? I'm going to give you something that destroys your proteoglycan production, or the building block of cartilage. So it's going to actually destroy your joints. It's also leading cause of kidney damage, and it's a myriad of effects. That's your first choice. Okay, then you got to move up the ladder to something more powerful. Let's give them something that can cause cancer and weaken their immune system, like steroids or prednisone. Now that's wiping out the body's ability to heal those joints. Then we go up to chemotherapy, or the disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drugs. Those things are deadly. And then we have the biologic agents. We have probably every other month somebody that has damage from Humira. I mean, it's pretty bad. Now, Tylenol decreases cartilage production, and this is not in a class of non-steroidal anti-inflammatories because nobody knows what class it should be in, because nobody knows actually how it works. Okay, and this is a metabolite of a drug that was taken off the market in the early 1900s. And if you knew the history of it, holy moly. Okay, I can't get into it here, but it's pretty wild. Okay, Tylenol depletes glutathione, damages the brain, can actually harm children. Okay, and 20 billion doses are sold every year. It's the leading cause of liver disease. Tylenol can cause dulled emotional responses, increase asthma, epidermal necrosis, that means your skin starts to rot and fall off, and a 2-fold increase in blood cancer. And it's also the most commonly prescribed medicine in America. So since our system is completely collapsing, I'm glad this is collapsing, because hopefully the pharmaceutical industry will get their ass out of the medical education so that people can start experimenting and have a hypothesis and look at how the body actually works, not just prescribing toxic chemicals. The non-steroidal anti-inflammatories have other effects other than destroying joint cartilage. Cardiovascular, hearing loss, gastrointestinal bleeding, allergic reactions, miscarriage, atrial fib. So now let's look at this. You're going to drug a mechanical problem. That's it. Osteoarthritis, the most common arthritis in the world, is from a trauma. That means when you have normal, when you have normal and you have a trauma, that puts an abnormal force loading on the body. And the body will spasm out the muscles on either side of the spine that you do not have conscious control over. Those are called postural muscles. And it's going to limit the motion. Now, the bummer is these discs have a horrible blood supply. They need motion in order to get nutrients in that disc. And your disc, you're looking at 80 interconnecting rings of ligament. So you need movement to get that imbibition where it forces fluid into the disc. And the discs are 70% water. Remember I was talking about how the knee, you interrupt that's a hydraulic joint, 70% of that disc is water. So if there is a trauma, the body is going to start to distort that to stabilize an unstable segment. That's what the bone spurs are. That's what the bone spurs are. So when you look at this, you've got normal on the left. That curve in the neck is like a cushion or shock absorber. Your head's probably 8 pounds. Mine's about probably 15. I got too many compliments when I was a kid. But I need that cushion and shock absorber. Okay, if this curve straightens, you don't have that cushion or shock absorber. And so the body is going to start to distort those bones to increase the surface area because the disc is getting smaller. Think of it, you got a disc this big bam, trauma, and it gets smaller, the body is going to have to increase the surface area in order to stabilize it. So it's a defense mechanism. And we'll see before and after, and it usually takes about 6 months to a year to start to see the bone spurs go away. And this is why it's graded grade 1, 2, 3. Now, when I taught biomechanics, okay, and this was the Bible, Kirkcaldy and Willis. I mean, you should hear like angels sing when you hear these guys, because they did amazing tests. Imagine this. What if you were like a real doctor, not some pharmaceutical shill trying to find a toxic chemical that was that you could sell to the public. I'm talking real guys, where they would go in and get cadaver samples from a young cadaver, middle-aged cadaver, and old cadaver, and they would put those joints in torsion, compression, distraction. And what do they find? Because what do you keep hearing from the moron doctors? Okay? Yeah, you just wear out. You're getting old. What they found was many elderly joints proved to be just as strong in torsion and compression as the younger ones. Furthermore, degenerate joints appear to be stiffer than normal but fail before healthier ones. This mechanical characteristics of scar tissue implies injury. So, osteoarthritis, degenerative disc disease, which is also called degenerative joint disease, is not degenerative and it's not a disease. How come they haven't changed the name? Why admit your mistake when you're the only ones that know it? So let's look at stenosis. When you have a loss of curve, forward head carriage, or anything, that causes narrowing. And you can see at this, that's an X-ray and an MRI. Once you restore that curve, you literally open it up. So to correct stenosis, you have to regenerate the disc. And honestly, I've had conversations with, I had this one guy, really cool orthopedic surgeon. He had a reverse curve in his neck. His hands were going numb. Numb hands good or bad for a surgeon? Okay, just checking. Okay, so reverse curve. And I said, yeah, doc, you still got movement in there. We got to cause inflammation. Yeah, doc, that's how the body regenerates, as you know, because you got to talk. You have to say, as you know, and obviously to people that think they know, but they don't really know. So, doc, as you know, we got to cause inflammation in order to regenerate that metabolic process so you can regenerate the disc. Regenerate disc? Well, doc, as you know, okay, they're alive. It's living material. So obviously, if we can restore the position motion through that imbibatory process, that disc is going to get the nutrients. So obviously, remember, obviously, and as you know, so obviously, if we're able to realign that, restore motion, cause inflammation, then that disc can regenerate. Disc regenerate? Yeah, doc, really? Okay, then you've got to walk them through. Do you have living tissue in your body or dead tissue? You know what he says? I never really thought about it. Well, let's just imagine it's dead. You're going to have macrophages going in there and chewing up the dead tissue and getting rid of it. Do you got macrophage activity on there, or do we still see movement? Well, it must be alive. Okay, good. So this is not degeneration. You're seeing a healthy joints on the right, on the left, distorted joints. Now, you're looking at more than 25 to 30 years of damage there. That means this person, you could confidently say you had a whiplash trauma over 20 years ago, and the body is stabilizing that. So what we'll do is take a stress x-ray to see if it does move. If it does, then we can predict how much we can get it back. This is mind-blowing. Numbness and tingling in the hands, because we're talking about arthritis reversal, and we got to blow through this fairly quickly. We're going to talk about carpal tunnel, golfer's elbow, tennis elbow, shoulder issues, okay? All of this, rotator cuff problems, all of that. Go to our individual, like our knee and pelvic health video, go to our foot health video, go to our carpal tunnel video, go to our rotator cuff video, okay? Go to all of those as long as they're still on. And I would really recommend you downloading everything, because how long are they going to keep me on in this social state? Have no idea. But this is thoracic outlet. Now, we've got the rib cage here. You've got a small opening up here, surrounded by the top rib. And out of that comes the blood supply, and out of the back of it comes the nerve supply. So if your head is forward, you're choking off the blood supply, nerve supply. Had a patient last week, 28 years old, girl, nice looking, healthy. She has the worst surgeon in the world. He removed her first rib. Now, yes, the first big old huge bullhorn up here, removed it because she had numbness and tingling in the hand. Did she have forward head carriage? Survey says big time. But the head being forward is protecting the nerves right at the base of the neck, right below the neck, in the top of the rib cage area. These are the nerves, the sympathetic nerve supply to the heart. They're also the top of the sympathetic chain. So this body posture could be designed to protect the nerves that supply the heart. Okay, and instead of restoring the curve, we're sending this gal to a corrective chiropractor. He just decided to do the work on his own. We're looking here, reverse curve, normal curve. We're looking here, loss of curve, normal curve. How does this get done? Fix it. Okay, you've got to go to a corrective chiropractor. You've got to get stress x-rays to see if it can be. And in fact, whoops. I forgot to get this. I've got a whole bunch of props here, so this is fun. This is what I made. Okay, I made this around 22 years ago. It's called a Thera Curve. It's a piece of webbing with some pipe insulation and a nylon covering. Yeah. How many guys in here would go to Home Depot and could make the same damn thing? Yeah, okay, so what it is just a pivot point. You can do a towel with this. You can do a beach towel, bath towel. It's got to be fairly thin. You pull down with about 2 pounds of pressure. You point your chin to the ceiling, look straight ahead, relax. So chin to the ceiling, straight ahead. About 100 a day. Now, you got to get approved by your chiropractor if this is appropriate. Because sometimes we'll get reverse curves in the neck. We'll get somebody with massive stuff that this would not be good for. But we're talking about over 90% of normal human beings, this would be fantastically beneficial. If not, and what we do for our kids, imagine if you're watching TV, okay, and this is what we do for like a 4 or 5 or 3-year-old kid that has had birth trauma or fell off something with a loss of curve. And say, look, buddy, you got to watch TV for about a half hour a day, but you got to watch something fun. So please pick your favorite cartoon. And you'll see this 3-year-old, really? Yeah, your mom's going to force you to get in that room and watch TV. You okay with that? And you know, it's just, kids are cool. But this is simple, basic stuff. And if you're working at a desk for an hour, do you think you should do the opposite? Get the neck curve? Absolutely. Heck, you can use this collared shirt. That'll work. When we're working with the arm and shoulders, what happens is when you compromise the nerve supply or blood supply to the shoulder, you've got these muscles that hold this bone, the humerus, in the socket. They're called rotators. If any of them get weak, it doesn't fall out of the socket, it falls up. So here to here you're strong, but when you go like that, that's when you get the pinch. So what you have to do, and that means the labrum or the socket that holds that is distorted. So you take a simple weight, about, you know, for a guy with arms like me, 15 to 20 pounds, okay? You don't want to just do it lightweight. You want to have something strong enough to pull it out of, not out of the socket, but to gap it. And you put your palms forward, you alternate one forward, one back, and that's going to start to reform the labrum. Bursitis. Tendons attach to a bone, or they attach the muscle to the bone. Around that tendon, because tendons cross joints, there can be friction. So around that is a bursa sac filled with bursa fluid. I know. Isn't that easy? A lot of anatomy, you know, it's like, dude, I got that question. Okay, so it's a superfiltrate of blood. So what happens if your blood isn't healthy or the bloodstone, it can't filter in there? What happens if your head's forward? You're choking out the blood supply to it. What happens if you have altered mechanics where one side, because when we're looking at the forearm, the strength ratio of flexors versus extensors should be a 5-to-4 ratio. If all you're doing is grabbing stuff, okay, that means it's not going to work correctly. Okay, you're going to have a muscle imbalance. So we got to correct that. Now, what's crazy is people with the bursa sac starts to get compressed, the tendon starts to inflame, and itis means inflammation. So it would be called tendonitis.
Yes.
I know. Isn't it cool, like when you know the answer? I love that victory. Yeah, so in crazy world, you would put ice on a tendon. That would shrink the swelling and decrease blood supply. It'll feel better, but it won't do anything to heal the damn thing. Now, if you put heat on it, you're increasing the blood flow, which will increase synovial fluid production, which will actually help fix the problem. But that's not even the problem. You got to fix the actual blood supply and nerve supply and the health of the blood in order to correct the problem permanently. So, always got that. People will come up and say, gee, I've gone 6 months of therapy and my shoulder still hurts. Dude, I know what the problem is there. We can fix that. Carpal tunnel. You need to have two things. This, if it's waking you up at night, if you figure carpal tunnel is a double crush injury beginning in the neck leading to a muscle imbalance of the forearm. And what that is, because you have a 5-to-4 ratio. If you're just grabbing stuff, that creates an abnormal. And that pulls on this tunnel, and that tunnel right there in the palm that's like this, you can actually stick a dime in, because I've done that to show the kids or the doctors where the tunnel is. Now, if you put your thumb and finger together, now this is only if you have a really, really bad where it's waking you up at night or you can't use it during the day. Now, what's that going to do? That's going to form the tunnel, right? Because what causes carpal tunnel? That tunnel flattens out and puts pressure on the median nerve. So what are we going to do? Form the tunnel. Now, the only way to make a muscle imbalance worse is to brace it. So we're not going to brace the whole wrist. That would be stupid. And it would be even dumber to prescribe a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory that destroys the joint cartilage, because that would be really dumb. But in crazy world, we go in there and cut the flexor retinaculum to destabilize the wrist, and that feels a little bit better. But how about let's use some of this high-quality electric tape. Put your thumb and finger together around the base of the metacarpals right here. You put the tape, don't do it too tight, and then you wrap it around. Now, I like electric tape, and you can see it holds a tunnel. Now, you can move your hand around, you can type, everything else that'll take the pressure off. And while you're fixing the neck and restoring the muscle balance, because one of the exercises you're going to use is the number 32 rubber band. You're going to go flower bud to claw, just like that. And if someone's not paying attention, you can shoot them. I was a paper boy. I could kill flies with those things, okay? So this, cool, easy, quick. Why am I showing you all of this stuff in one video? Because I honestly don't think these are going to be here that long. And this is how to solve shoulder problems, elbow problems, bursitis, knee issues, everything. All of this has to, if you're under physical, chemical, or emotional stress, you have that fight or flight going. So for God's sake, turn off the friggin' TV. You know, look at Sherry Tenpenny stuff. Look at Children's Health Defense. Look at all of the groups that are fighting for your rights, okay, to get accurate information. But this physical, chemical, or emotional stress will put you in the fight or flight response. And that decreases your body's ability to produce healthy nutrients or healthy tissue. When you're looking at the SI joint, the sacral iliac joint, there is no muscle that crosses the back half of that. So if you've had a gait or a foot problem or a knee problem or a lumbar problem, okay, that pelvis is going to be unstable. Now, if you've had your tensor fascia lata, the TFL worked, your glutes worked, or the psoas, I got a chronic tight hip flexors. Okay, you know how many people come in and tell me that? I go, no, you don't. Oh, no, it's tight all the time. I get a guy working on it once a week and it's fine. And I go, muscles don't react on their own. Let's find out what the real problem is. To identify pelvic problems, you do stress x-rays of the lumbar. But it costs us around, I think it's like $10 or $11. It's a 2-pole support. That's one, then the other 2 pull tight. You have to loosen up everything, but it goes 1 inch, the top of the pelvis, it goes 1 inch below that. And you use this when you're standing or walking. Works fantastic. How do you know if your pelvis is not functioning correctly? By looking at the feet. If you start to see your big toe leaning towards the other ones, that means you've got compromised nerve supply to that foot. Now, what does that mean? The pelvis houses the parasympathetic nervous system. Rest, digesting, and repairing will be a challenge for you. one bowel movement a day if you're lucky. I mean, brain fog because you're in a chronic stress state. So what do? If you're sitting at a desk, you can sit with your legs out really wide. I know mom told you not to do that, okay? She cared about other parts. Out wide will approximate the hips and take the pressure off. Or you can use one of our foam pieces. Okay, and it was hard to find a density, but I'm squeezing this pretty hard and I can barely dent it. You can also use a water bottle. But this is placed the bottom of your elbows where the bottom of this goes. Fantastic. Or you can sit like a cowgirl. That'll help stabilize the pelvis. Here's a patient here. We're looking at a leaky gut, an abnormal lumbar, but look at the sacral iliac joint. The joints on this x-ray right here. Okay, see how they look white? White is inflammation on an x-ray. So that's a long-term chronic sacral iliac problem. Now what you're going to see in this, if a chiropractor is watching this, okay, you're going to have this patient that you're going to do an adjustment. Oh, doc, that felt great. That was so loud. Dude, they heard that across the street. And then by the time they get home, the pain comes back. So docs, get a water bottle, get a foam block, turn this into sitting, because the bottom of the elbow is where this thing goes. That'll turn sitting into therapy, or get a trochanter support. Fantastic. And the other things, hip problems, bowel problems, sexual dysfunction. When we look at this, this is the worst position to lay in. In fact, if you want to have emergency come and pick you up, lay on your back with your legs on a table on a cold floor. That will reverse the disc. It feels good while you're doing it. Why does it feel good when you're doing it? Because a normal low back has a curve. Now watch what happens, and the discs are narrow at the back, wide at the front. Now watch what happens to the nerve holes when I flatten this out. They open up. Oh, that takes pressure off the nerve. Oh, that feels so good. But it's reversing the disc. So when you go to stand back up, oh, you're bent over. So, and I actually have some people prescribe this, and I thought, that's crazy. So this is using a water bottle or the foam piece, what to do. The knees, you want to distract that. Now distracting it with a weight, minimum 10 pounds. And this is going to help reverse knee degeneration. But remember that knee, if it's desiccating or drying up, if you separate it, by God, that creates a negative pressure and allows the increased synovial fluid production. And this is going to cause inflammation, but you do not want to lift the leg. You want to just dangle it, because these are ligamentous-based exercises. We also have this expensive block. It is not a 4x4. Don't say it is a 4x4. Some people. Okay, it's a 4x4. And I just put a stamp on it. All you do is do this exercise. And you hold it, you put your ball of your foot on it, stretch it, but be patient. Particularly if you've had somebody with neurologic damage, like a kid nowadays. You get any kid 18 years or older or younger, they're going to generally have a tough time flexing their calf. And you'll also see on kids, toe walkers. Okay, that's typically an upper motor neuron lesion. It means they've had some type of brain damage. So you want to stretch it. If you can, gas pedal your feet to get blood going down there to solve any foot issues. You'll have crazy barbarians say that meniscus doesn't regenerate, and that's not true. Meniscus, the outer side, the outer edge of the meniscus, and that meniscus is the pink stuff, and it's pink because it has a blood supply. But where that femur, the big bone here, rests on the tibia, there's no blood vessels. Why? Because they would be crushed. But they're avascular, means there's no blood vessels. It's not acellular. They get their nutrients from the synovial fluid. Look at the nutrients, vitamin K, and good for rheumatoid. Apoptosis of the rheumatoid arthritis synovial cells. That means this destroys the bad cells. When we look at turmeric, okay, and I mean, this actually tastes good too. The strategy may support regeneration of articular cartilage. So when people say, oh, I didn't know cartilage can regenerate. Well, you can look at arthritis research and therapy, and it has great things that turmeric regenerated. Why do doctors never see cartilage regeneration? Because they prescribe nonsteroidal anti-inflammatories, which stops cartilage regeneration. I know. You're thinking it doesn't make sense. I know it doesn't. That's why the world is changing. Okay, so this is the good thing. I'm showing you new stuff that we're going to be learning, that people are going to be taking care of themselves when the corporate takeover of the world is done. So what do? Right now, we know that the joints, your body is always regenerating. We know that we've got 5 to 10 years of great challenges coming up. Absolute. You got to get food storage, you got to get water storage. Realize that I think it's 57% of all the restaurants that closed will not open. And I think it's around 40% of all the businesses that closed will not open. Okay, we have 28 million, or about 5 to 8% of America will be homeless in September. And you could say, no, they're going to stop that. Really? What about the people that own the buildings that have to make the payments? No, the politicians are either complete idiots or they're doing this on purpose. Okay, you cannot crash the economy. We have to build stuff. So what do? First, we clean up the food system. Why? Because the food becomes you. We have to raise this responsibly, ethically, and in harmony with our world. And you can do it. See the Big Little Farm. I mean, that's a brilliant documentary. We got to clean up healthcare. That means we look at the care of our health. No more symptom drug therapy. That doesn't work. Clean up the environment. That means we cannot live an infinite expansion economy, business, and lifestyle in a finite world. That will crash, and we're seeing it around us now. Politics. Government, by the consent of the governed. So if you do not consent to going along with all this stuff, the face mask, social distancing, the forced medications, the loss of your job, the loss of contact, the loss of church, and none of this stuff is actually laws. They're just passing edicts. Okay, and the shutdown will only last for about a month or 2 weeks, or be over in Easter. No, now it's going to be 4th of July. Nope, got to close the beaches on 4th of July. It will never end. Okay, this will never end. Why? Because people, you have to go in. You've lied to them already. You've told them that the face mask, social distancing, and all this is to shut down the overwhelming of the hospitals. So now what they have to do is they have to either admit they lied, which they won't, okay, or they can continue to perpetuate the fear. And then they wipe out any dissenting opinion, because you can't have dissenting opinion. Infrastructure. We build our planet healthy and in harmony. Okay. Do not comply, okay, with this. I mean, I just ordered, because there's some stores now that they're not even allowing our exemptions. So I ordered this really cool chain mail. Okay, it's not a chain mail mask. It's actually a chain mail thing that you wash pots with, but it really is chain mail. So if someone says, is that for protection? I'll say, yeah, you can shoot me in the face with an arrow. It works better than the friggin' cloth thing, because if you touch the outside, hell, you can boil this thing. It'll sanitize the heck out of it. So as free men and women, do you recognize the state or authority of the state to mandate forced medical procedures for you? No? Yes? No? Okay, good. Then you don't have to do it, because your bodies are sovereign territory. This is a medical freedom pact. This is a good group that's developing lawsuits, okay, to make a difference in the world, so we can try and do it legally, although I don't think it's going to happen. Go to drjohnbergman.com. Until they shut me down, we're putting all our videos there. We still got a YouTube presence. We still got a Facebook presence. It's interesting, though, now, a few weeks ago, now we have over 100,000 subscribers on Facebook. We used to be at 20 and 30,000 within a day. Okay, now we're at about 4,000 to 5,000 within a day, because they're not notifying people that it's coming out. And in YouTube, we have about 700,000 subscribers, and those used to be about 18 to 20,000 in the first day, and now we're getting around 3,000 to 4,000. I hear from a lot of subscribers that they're not getting the notifications. So first they demonetize, then they stop advertising you, then they take you off. And so we have BitChute and Extreme Health Academy. Extreme Health Academy is huge. We're also working on a Podesta site that hopefully anything can be taken down, but hopefully it'll be more resistant. take care of yourselves. That's why I put it all in one thing, okay? And we can take care of ourselves, but you're going to have to be able to walk. You're going to have to be able to move. So start doing these joint exercises every day. Make sure you have food. Make sure that you're talking to your neighbors, okay, or people that you can talk to. Because some people are so far into this psychosis that you cannot talk to them. I've got family members I can't talk to. Hell, I got relatives I can't even see because they have to protect the kid who there has never been, never, ever, ever, one child in the entire planet documented case that child gave it to an adult. But what do? We shut down schools. Next week, we're going to talk about how to reform the brain. Thank you very much.